Hello, this is Robert Rickover. I'm an Alexander Technique teacher in Omaha, Nebraska, and my guest is Imogen Ragone, an Alexander Technique teacher in Wilmington, Delaware. And as we've done in the past a few times, this is going to be very experimental, especially from Imogen's point of view, because she has absolutely no idea what we're going to do. And
No idea at all.
zero idea, other than that she needs to have a metronome nearby. And she's sitting on a chair that has armrests, and that's just to facilitate a certain aspect of this. It's not a key element. So you you have two hands and 2 feet, right?
I do, yes.
So could you just experiment with clapping um, your right hand onto your right knee, just clapping it rhythmically, a little slower. Doom, doom, yeah. And then you can do that, and you could do your other hand on the other knee.
At the same time,
No, just yeah, right? Yeah, good. And now you could switch back and forth.
like that.
Yep, perfect. And good. And I assume you're not having any trouble doing that, right?
No. I
Okay,
must
good.
remember not to clap too hard though, so
Oh,
my knees don't get sore.
oh, we don't need a, yeah. Now, the thing you could do with your feet is you could gently lift a foot a little bit and bring it down again. So just explore, yeah, yeah. Maybe a little faster on that one, just, yeah. A little faster. And then the other foot, yeah, you could do that. The other foot, same thing, same thing. Okay, now here's your first little exercise.
Okay.
Um, and this might be a good time to turn the metronome on.
Okay.
We've got it set to 40 beats per minute. Probably if you're watching, you won't hear this, but maybe you could turn it up louder. I wonder if it is possible for that.
Well,
You hear?
you're hearing me through my headphones so that
Oh,
you can hear me clearly from so
yeah.
far away. So,
Well, Imogen has a metronome going at 40 beats a minute.
mhm.
So, could you just briefly do those two things again, but keeping time with the metronome? So hands coming down knees, yeah, staying with the metronome. That's crucial that you stay with the metronome. And then do the same thing with your feet. And yeah, okay, and the other foot. Okay, so you don't have any trouble doing those actions with the
Not so
metronome.
far. Okay.
Okay, now the next step is you're going to when you clap your, let's say, your left hand onto um your left hand, that can be synchronized with your right foot. So right foot lifts and taps down, and just one hand, just the opposite hand.
You see this moving just because my leg is moving.
Let it just rest. Yeah. Okay.
Is that right?
Yep. Well, and only you can tell if you're right on the metronome beat of that, but probably
I am. I'm wondering if you have a metronome, whether it might be better for you to play it and then everyone could hear it as well.
no, because it won't be the same synchronized
Okay.
fingers. And now the other hand and the other foot. And actually, yeah, go ahead. Other hand, other foot, right? And now switch back and forth. Good. And you're not having any trouble staying with the beat on that.
No.
Okay. So let's just add one more little thing. While you're doing this back and forth, you're also thinking an Alexander technique direction. And if you would close your eyes as well. Good, good. So that wasn't hard for you to do, right?
No, it's okay. Yeah,
Right.
that's fine.
But for a lot of people, that's not going to be so easy to do. Certainly for me, it was not at all easy to do.
I have quite a lot of musical
Yes,
background from
yes,
way back, which
right,
might be helping me. I'm sure it is helping me.
right.
Yeah.
But as a starting point for using this process that we'll talk more about,
Mhm.
something kind of like you just did would
Mhm.
be a very good starting point to see how, whether that ability to switch sides, both top and bottom, left on the top, right on the bottom, or vice versa, that can get disturbed very easily by a stroke, for example. Could
Mhm.
also be disturbed pretty easily by people who just cannot process stuff very well, particularly children who have developmental issues. Um, they would have a hard time doing this.
Mhm. Uh,
People with Parkinson's would almost certainly have a very hard time doing this. Now,
yeah, and even I noticed where it's fairly easy, but I noticed even just when I started clapping how it was a little bit different with what my left hand,
yes,
because I'm right-handed, my left hand was just a little bit less sort of competent.
right,
So
right. So far you've had no problem doing this, and you may not have any problem doing any of the things we're going to do,
we'll
but
see.
if you could just reach over for that metronome and turn it
Mhm.
up to uh, 55 would be enough.
55.
Yeah.
Whoop. And start it.
Yeah, start it up again and see if you can make those same cross movements
So it's
and
the
stay with the beat of the metronome. Now, one thing, only one hand is going to be doing anything at any one time. And
I'm just pausing it because if my hand's on my knee and I lift the leg up, it moves because my leg is moving, but
right,
I'm not moving my hand. So I
so
was moving it out of the way so you didn't see that. But of course, that means there's a movement going on. So, so this is
could
me
you,
doing my
instead
right.
of tapping your legs, tap the armrests?
Oh.
You'll probably have to go further back in the chair.
Yeah, the
Okay.
little short armrests.
But they're set.
So like that.
So left hand, right foot. Yeah.
All right, let me set the beat again.
And say 55
Yeah.
beats per second. Eyes closed. Okay. And just move it up to 65 beats, and then I'll explain later why we're choosing these particular numbers. So same thing, eyes closed.
Oh,
Did you
hang on,
notice
let
you
me start
got
again.
off the path? That getting off that you just did that would be something that for some people they would constantly do, and it would constantly involve one leg being the one that you want to combine with something on the same side. But you have pretty much avoided.
Yeah, it
Now, if we just add one more little complication, because
okay.
that's the whole thing. This is all about processing,
Hmm.
mental processing, left, right hemisphere processing. So instead of um, tapping the armrests, make a gentle fist and come down on them
Like that.
as that size move. Yeah, like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
All
And
right.
and
I'm
coordinate
starting my
that
metronome.
with the opposite foot doing the little lifting. The hand that one there you have a hand that's coming down, but the other when that hand's coming down, the other hand shouldn't be doing anything. And you're kind of lifting it off. Yeah. Uh-huh. And continue and just use an Alexander technique direction to guide the quality of your movements. Yeah. Okay. So you did really well. I mean, I think very few people could, I think a lot of people couldn't do that,
Hmm.
is my guess. Certainly people that have any kind of issues of the kind.
It's interesting. I think the rhythm, the metronome helps me because I'm like, oh, I do this now, I do this now, I do it. Dun, dun, dun. It helped me. And
Yes,
I actually think when I had the fist, it was somehow a little bit easier. I don't know why, but
right. Well, and what can happen, the let's just do one more thing. So,
okay,
so far, uh, you're sitting and there's no balance issue to worry about. And
no.
that would be a way to begin this process for most people. In fact,
Hmm.
for many people, it would be important to do this for quite a while before even contemplating doing something standing.
Okay.
So let's see, let's take it, let's leave that same 65. We got now 65
Yeah.
beats.
Okay.
And if you could just stand up in front of the chair and come a little, let's see, come a
I'm
little,
going to just adjust
just the
slightly.
screen a little bit, right? Perfect. Okay. So you still have the two hands and you have the
Hmm.
two legs.
I
So
do.
you will use the clapping thing to start with. You could clap on the side of your body, like a little,
Like that.
yeah, like that. Yep. And also, and then at the same time, the other foot comes off.
Kind of like that.
Only one hand gets clapped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think,
I haven't got my rhythm going, so it wasn't looking
no,
so
and
good.
yeah, go ahead and start again because this is much more challenging. Okay. And now, how about instead of just clapping and having your eyes closed, you make a little circle with your hands so that they don't just come down on your side. Your hand goes through a little circle to get there.
You mean like kind of like that?
Oh, a little, oh, like it just, yeah, a little circle through the air. Yes, like that. Yeah. I, I think maybe, hang on. You sure your left leg and right hand are going at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, How does that seem?
I definitely feel like I'm marching. Um, I'm- I could feel
Well,
myself wanting to kind of,
yeah, but
march.
did you know,
Um,
did it seem to you that you were it was always your right hand and left leg moving? Because
I think it was,
I,
but because when I kind of checked in, it was still going in the right one, but
okay,
I wasn't as aware I was just doing it. Um,
that's fine, but you got to make sure in this little world we're talking about that two things that you're staying with the left-right movement,
yeah,
not
that's
sneaking
left.
into a
I mean,
left.
I wasn't bringing it up like that,
Oh,
but
well, maybe bring it up a little higher to really, that'll add
so you
another
can
level.
see,
Yeah.
aha, that was,
Yeah. You
but
notice that you can get thrown off.
yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And if you were to,
I get thrown off when I don't have the rhythm. That's very interesting to me
and
because
now,
yeah,
okay, so right now the metronome's off.
yeah,
And could you do that with the big circles? Now leave the metronome off for a
okay,
bit. With
okay.
the circles. Yeah. And you're sure that your hands and
Yeah,
feet
look.
are, yeah,
Zoom.
the foot arrives at the ground at the same
Yeah,
time the hand arrives.
yeah.
Okay, good. And then if you use the metronome, because we want to make what the metronome gives us is a standard that is, um, it's like if up is important for Alexander lessons to know where up is, uh, the beat is the same level of importance for this. So that's good. That's pretty good. So what you're demonstrating is someone who can actually pull this off.
That's probably not what you wanted.
Well, no, not at all, because we could keep adding complexities to it. So,
Yeah, it's definitely has got harder.
for example, instead of a slap, a gentle fist coming in,
A what?
a
A
little
fist?
fist, a gentle fist movement. Yeah. And then instead of just the fist that coming in like that, rotate the fist before each time.
What do you mean?
Just rotate it. Yeah, do something different with it. All of these are designed to create a bigger
It's
challenge.
getting harder and harder to do my directing and
Yeah,
manage
and
the
also
activity.
uh, eyes closed would be good too. Can
Oh gosh,
you do
all
that?
right, let me.
Because that's going to also create some new issues. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's excellent. So let me and it can get way more complicated.
Okay,
And we're not going to do that. But let's come back to the chair. Maybe we can just talk about it now. I assume the
I'll come
metronome
a little
is
closer.
off at this point. Um, so this is something that is called metronome therapy, which I didn't
Mm.
never knew was a thing until quite recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it it involves doing those kinds of movements where you engage parts parts of your body bilaterally or with whatever complication is needed to make it harder to do. So you
Well, I
could
mean, it really struck me that you're getting the like how ideally you'd be walking, and it would be the opposite arm swinging from the
Oh
leg.
yeah,
That's,
yeah, right. But we're not for reasons maybe I'll explain later. We don't want to apply this to walking particularly, but
no,
uh,
I just that I
yeah,
made
right,
that connection that we were using the arms and the legs, like in crawling as well, or so.
right. So a couple of things. You might, if you so feel so inclined, try this with some people, perhaps your husband.
Hmm.
Just see if they can do it, you know, and or if they have a if there's some kind of default, if they default to right arm, right leg,
Hmm.
left arm, left leg,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
very common in people with brain damage or um, all, and also the this metronome therapy is mainly known for helping children who have developmental issues. So even a simple thing like this, clapping,
Hmm.
they may not be able to do that at first.
Hmm.
They're bringing just bilateral across and then
Bringing it together, yeah.
bring it
Okay.
together. And if you then combine that with foot movements,
Mm.
pretty quickly, they're going to have trouble with that. And when they practice and using the metronome to kind of keep them honest in terms of the time, the
Mm-hmm.
everything everything coming at the same time, the
I
clap.
could see that
But
for some people, the metronome would kind of make it harder. For me, I had the experience of having a steady beat, making it easier. I mean, and my way for managing it on my own when I didn't have it was to, oh, I need to recreate that beat in myself to be able to keep steady and keep things going. But I know for some, I'm very used to that from
what you use because you
musical background years
musical
ago.
background, yeah.
And
So
that's
yeah. So the other places where it has been shown to be effective is people with Parkinson's disease. There's
mm,
quite a bit of
mhm,
several studies on that. There are also a couple of smaller scale studies on just elderly people,
mhm,
and they it is generally most often used by occupational therapists
mhm,
working with children and Parkinson's. But there's a pretty good case that could be made uh, that has been made by some physical therapists that this would be a really good thing for physical therapists as well.
mhm,
And I'm wanting to make a case that this could be a really good thing for Alexander teachers
mhm.
as well. Because what the Alexander technique can bring to this is, well, first of all, you might say another layer of complexity. You have to think in Alexander direction as you're doing this. So that's,
Could also be another layer of support, though, too, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, what you're doing in this process is you're moving parts of your body. And obviously, you can move them better or worse in terms of just the quality of the movement. So that's where I think the Alexander technique comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I want to just make it clear to everyone watching this, I am not an expert in metronome therapy. I really just learned about it in the last month or so. But to me, it seems like a field that anybody could start to practice working on their own. There really aren't any hard set rules about how to do or what you should do, but you're just putting little challenges that involve uh, particularly left-right hemisphere activities. And
Mm.
those can be a problem for kids sometimes developmentally, and that's what it's best known for. But
Mm.
also strokes, Parkinson's, anything like that. And
Um, Yeah.
and
Can I ask about you were quite specific with the beats per minute. Um
yeah, 40.
and I'm just curious about
Well,
that.
40 is pretty low. It's a good
Yeah.
introductory one. Some people in this world of metronome therapy believe that 64, I just wow, rounded up to 65 beats per minute, is kind of optimal in some way. I can't
64.
say that
Okay.
I understand exactly why it's optimal, except that if you got too much faster than that, it gets really difficult. But 40 is not, may not be much of a challenge for people. You might want to move it up to the 50s or 60s.
Hmm.
And my overall take on this from an Alexander perspective is that in some ways, you could think of this as like an Alexander procedure of the type constructive rest, hands on back of chair, monkey position. Those are all physical movements or places you put
Hmm.
yourself in and that lend themselves to Alexander when combined with some Alexander thinking,
Hmm.
um, could be really useful, or even just useful on their own. Constructive rest, you think about it, especially if you do the version of constructive rest that I like to do with new students, which is just putting support under your knees. So you're not even having to worry about your legs falling in or falling out. Just being there, gravity's operating on you in quite a different way, and there are benefits of that, and they can be enhanced by Alexander directing. Once
Hmm.
you've once you've gotten good at just lying down, you can now add some thinking to it and get even more benefits. Same thing with monkey or uh, hands on back of chair. Well, I'm trying to think of some others, but a kind of a procedure. It could be a useful procedure for Alexander teachers who are, after all, often working with people who had some issues
Hmm.
that might be very much helped by this.
Yeah, and I think really I can imagine like when you're first introducing the movements, really taking time to work with your students to direct and be using themselves to the best of their ability while they do it, and then building up so you're not practicing them doing it in a uh,
Well, there's different,
or but I think there's also something about the rhythm that kind of gets you out of a habit a bit too, if
yeah.
you can connect with it. Anyway, there's different ways, right?
Well, I think in general, the people who do this want you to get started, maybe even without the metronome, just to do the basic movements, and then, but fairly quickly introduce the metronome to make it really precise.
I was just imagining a student, if you could see every time they were doing something like,
Yeah, you could,
exaggerating, you would want to not be reinforcing that. I'd want to back off and like, well, can we just, clap on the leg without involving the neck, for instance?
right, right. But one way to do that is, let's say you're doing the left to right tapping leg movement.
Mhm.
Each beat, you're not only making those movements, but you're maybe making, if you use a really simple Alexander direction like I'm free, you just bring I'm free. You could even just
Exactly.
say free. Now, I prefer the I'm not thinking direction in general. So I'm not think I am not thinking. So it's like four stages, beats
So
as
you get it in the rhythm. I kind of do a similar thing. There's
yeah.
um some practices that we do with in my groups that this comes from Mia Morales called potato, but it's moving the hands. But
Hmm.
then we've practiced it for ages with our constructive thinking going quite slowly. Then we play with, because we know the movements, that you're just in this rhythm, but that's the rhythm of your thinking. And I'll prompt with a ease, 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 ease,
Right, right.
ease. So it's the same idea that, or it could be
Yeah,
I'm free,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
um,
That's exactly. And you could one way to do this is if you're lying down, maybe it could be in constructive rest or lying down, getting ready to go to sleep. Have the metronome on and just do some a little movements as you're lying. It could be just combining a little movement of a right foot with um, a
with
left
the
something,
just a little tiny. I was thinking doing
a
something in
hand, maybe
constructive
a
rest.
hand, the little hand movement and combining right hand, left leg, and to the beat. Very small movements, so you don't, if you're going to
Yeah.
bed, you don't toss the blankets all over the place, but you could even end up falling asleep to the metronome. And there's a little bit of talk in some places that that itself could be useful. You're sleeping and the metronome's going and each ear's getting its own version of it and blah, 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 so there could be that.
Mhm.
Um,
That's interesting. I was also just thinking, just if you're doing constructive rest during your day, like you say, there's a little movement of the hand and the opposite foot and the other hand, but that's also a really good place because you've got the support of
you
the
you got the
surface under
support.
you that you're not doing anything extra while you're doing these little
Yeah,
movements.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I think it would be a perfect thing for constructive rest.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think
Very interesting, Robert. Of
yeah,
course, I'm delighted I was able to
I'm I'm
do it, which
I'm
which is not the point. But I'm human
well, I
too.
think you'd be a really good demonstrator. What I'm gonna do with this, and I'm gonna do a few other recordings, is put links to some pages that physical therapists have where they've explained a little bit what this is all about and why they think this is really appropriate for PTs. That's kind of interesting. And also, there's a YouTube playlist video of a lady demonstrating multiple movements that you could make standing. Just
Mm,
like you could come up with zillions of combinations.
mm,
If we really wanted to push the limit with you, we'd speed up the metronome. We'd have you doing quite different things with your hands than with your legs, maybe tapping your head or hitting gently, but something that was very different to what the feet are doing or the legs are doing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Interesting.
there's
So-
multiple ways to make it more complicated, which I don't actually know yet at this point because I'm learning all this from a PT who works
mhm,
in rehab at the hospital I was in.
mhm,
And I'm hoping to do an interview with him as well because his reason for getting into it, which is kind of interesting, he's been a PT for many years, is that he notices that he can help people strengthen them, do strengthening and doing this and that, but there's still something not right. There's still a discoordination that isn't helped by just exercises,
mm, mm.
strengthening. And he stumbled onto it and um,
Oh,
it's uses it. He uses it as he would put it, mainly as people who have issues with too much sensory overload issues,
Okay.
which is very easy to have when you have a stroke or something like that, because
Mm.
the channels between the two hemispheres are a little messed up, and now a hemisphere is being, and with this, you're asking the right hemisphere to do some things that it normally wouldn't be expected to do.
Ah,
The left.
okay.
If you've been doing this a lot as a musician, chances are it's not as much an issue for you.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
uh, anyway,
Well, it's not a channel
Andy's
I've
not a
been working with.
musician. Andy's
Yeah.
not a musician, right? He has no
No,
background.
I will try with my husband. So is your idea though for our viewers or listeners that other Alexander teachers could try this and experiment with it themselves and with their
Yes,
students and
yes, I think so. I think
yeah,
it'd be very
as
interesting to
another
try this.
as
Yeah,
another kind of activity in which to explore
exactly.
our work. Mhm.
And there is one of the things that a distinction that's made, and I gotta make sure I get the terminology right, um, is there are there are they don't, for example, recommend doing this, except for Parkinson's people who walk very, very slowly and
Mhm.
carefully and not.
Mhm.
But in general, they don't say this is something that would be useful for bike riding or walking because things like we did just now, the left,
Mhm.
right, that carries over into other things. And they have a
It's
term.
kind of naturally happening in those
I don't find the exact
bicycling or
word.
walking. Yeah.
Um, yeah, the term they use is it's useful for general domain sensory integration exercises. So exercises that are not really just for themselves, but for all your activities.
It will flow, what you build up that capacity as you're doing them will flow into everything else you do, basically.
Right. But something like walking or cycling doesn't fit that. But something like walking or cycling, those are activities that right away might call for Alexander.
Mm.
They may not be good general domain metronome therapy things, but you know,
Yeah,
Alexander could probably help people unless they're perfectly coordinated and
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
on.
who is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah,
fascinating, Robert. Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome. So, you have any other questions that you think people might have? And by the way, we're talking about here a little about Alexander technique and metronome therapy, but someone watching this certainly does not have to know anything about the Alexander technique to explore this.
To play with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you can go quite far with this without any. One of the beauties of this doesn't require any equipment. You have these nice metronome apps that are available on your phone. The one that you're using, I think, is called the Metronome app or something. But there's another one called something like really easy metronome, I think it's called. That I think
yeah, it's
you
just a
have.
free metronome app. It was very simple and it worked
Right,
fine.
but there's another free one, I think it's called Easy Metronome, that allows for this kind of complexity. You're doing stuff to the beat, but you can set it so that for every certain number of them, the tone changes once and you have to switch to something else and then switch back again after five or four or whatever you set.
Mhm.
And again, another layer of complexity,
Mhm. Mhm.
another
Mhm.
layer of complexity. So
Yeah,
anyway,
very interesting. So no further questions, just I'm eager to explore this a bit more
yeah,
myself.
see if you
So
can
thank you.
find some people to explore it on.
Yeah, I have my sights on a few.
And who knows? We might want to do a follow-up interview based on your experiences. Okay,
Sure.
well, my guest today has been Imogen Ragone, an Alexander teacher in Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware. And I'll be posting this as a YouTube video, and I will include in the description the links to some those couple of articles by PTs, a series of video that shows lots of possible movements, and maybe some other stuff that will be relevant. So you can do it. You can do a search for metronome therapy, and you'll see a lot of stuff coming up right away. And a lot of it'll be kids, but
Okay.
also for Parkinson's. You'll see those too.
Thank
Okay.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.